Hello, my name is Rachel Gibson, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Nebraska. And today I just have a quick overview about how to use District R. Hopefully you've seen our part 1 of our redistricting series Meant to Represent. So this is the interactive piece where we're really going to hone in on your community and what map drawing looks like. So what we're using here is a tool called District R. This is a free public website that is taking data from the most recent available census. So this is data from 2010 to give us a sense of population. Once we get the full official numbers for 2020, this will be updated. But again, for our purposes, it really is about building your community. So it's okay that we're working with the 2010 data. So with this, we're going to jump right in with our overview of District R. So I'm going to start by just jumping to our map here. And as you can see, you can pick any state. We're going to pick Nebraska because that's where we are. And when you pick on this state, it's going to ask you if you want to draw districts or draw communities. Because we are really focused on this idea of you having a strong ability to identify and advocate for your community, we are going to focus on drawing your community as opposed to drawing your district. That's almost kind of the next step. Now, when you choose to draw a community, you have two ways you can do that, either out of precincts or out of block groups. And if you recall from the presentation, precincts are really those ways that your community has been sliced up to facilitate voting. So it's the places you go to vote. There's still a bit of a political piece of that. So we're getting as far away as that from possible. We're going to do block groups, which really is just straight up geography. So now that we've chosen that, we are here on our map, and I'm going to give you a little tour of the things we're going to be using here. First, I'd like to point out over here on the right, our dashboard. We're going to start in our drawing area, and you'll see that you have your hand tool, which moves things, your paintbrush, which will fill in our community with a paintbrush. You can erase using the eraser, and then you can inspect or learn more about certain areas with the little magnifying glass. Slightly below, you'll see we're going to be working a lot in the drawing tab, but there's also data layers. If this is your jam, you can get in here and look at all sorts of different things. We aren't going to use this tool too much today, but we will be using this evaluation tab, which, as you can see, kind of gives the summary of whatever area you're looking at. So it's always going to give us Nebraska here on the right, and then it's going to start filling in this data for our community as we paint it. So that's kind of a quick introduction to the tools we're using. Now, how do we actually use this? Well, I'm going to start with Omaha because I live in Omaha, and so I'm most familiar with this community. So we're just using this as an example. I'm going to zoom in here, and I live in the west side Rockbrook area of town. So I live kind of in this little 80 to 680 crevice area. So the first thing we want to do is come to our drawing tab and start by thinking about things that make up our community. So this is what we're calling our important places. So if you come down here, you'll see there's an important places tab, and we're actually going to drop some pins in the important places in our community. So when I think about Rockbrook, west side, the first thing I think about is Rockbrook Village, which is right down in this area. So I'm going to drop a little pin, and then I actually am able to come over here and name it. So Rockbrook Village. So that's my first important place. So then I'm going to keep thinking about what else do I think of when I think of my community? For me, one of the big ones is West Side High. That's really a key spot in my mind. So I'm going to go down here and get back to my new point and title it West Side High. And then I keep dropping pins in to kind of give myself a sense of my community. The conversation that happens during this portion of the activity is incredible and incredibly important. Being able to talk in a group of individuals who live in an area and say, okay, I think of this as my community, but someone else might not, what is where we kind of land on that we really consider our neighborhood or our community. So once you've got your important places dropped, then we're going to get to the fun part of drawing. Now, again, I'm only using 2 just in the interest of time, but I would say at least have, I don't know, at the very minimum 5, but you could have up to 10, 15, however many your group decides. Once you have all those places in order, then you're going to start coloring in your map. So you're going to come here to the paintbrush. We're working on community name 1. We can name that if we want. And I'm just going to come and start filling in the areas that kind of fit into this neighborhood. So for right now, you know, we really just talked about West Side and Rockbrook and that type of thing. So I've filled this blue in as my community. Now what we're going to do is hop over here to our evaluation tab. And you'll see, as I said, it starts filling in those numbers. So in this area that I've shaded blue, that's 10,000 people. And it gives you some other interesting data if you're looking at it. But again, we're focusing on just building what is your community. When you're building these communities, the ballpark number you're aiming for is about 40,000 Nebraskans for a state legislative district. So these are the folks that you vote for to send to Lincoln. And then 645,000 for our House of Representatives who go to Washington. So in this example, I'm kind of focusing more on that state level because that's really the granular level we're at. So if I was aiming for that 40,000 for my legislative district, I'm not quite there yet. I'm a fourth of the way there. So that's when I might come back to my drawing tab and say, okay, if I have to expand this, what makes sense? You know, me personally, I don't necessarily think of this as kind of the Rockbrook area. That's more Regency. So I'm actually going to go all the way over to 72nd. And then I'll hop back over here in my evaluation. All right, I'm still not quite there yet. So about a third of the way there. Now, something that could be interesting too at this point is if it's helpful, you can add another community. So I'm going to come up here to color, add a new color. This is yellow. This is community 2. I'm going to say, okay, maybe this area is, I don't consider it Rockbrook, but it's the next closest neighborhood to us. So I'm going to fill all this in that I think kind of fits. So we have community 1 and 2. I'm going to come over here to evaluation. And you can see from the drop down, community 1, we're still at 16,000. Community 2, we're at 16,000. We're getting closer. So this is how you use these different communities and tools. Now, you know, of course, you can always go back and switch it all up to blue or use that eraser and say, you know, actually I was thinking about it and I don't think this is, whatever you want to do to kind of get to that number. And again, you're aiming for 40,000, around that for your state legislator, and 645,000 for that House of Representatives seat. So you're probably going to have a lot of the metro if that's the one you're working on. So that's our very, very quick introduction to District R. And again, the purpose of this is so that you can actually put on a map where your community is. This is going to come in handy later when, you know, perhaps you attend public hearings, or when the maps come out, the proposed maps, you know, you can come back and look at this and say, hey, they just split my neighborhood right in half, or nope, they've kind of grouped it how I would group it. This is how I define it too. Because yes, these are our legislators drawing these maps, but keep in mind that they represent their own district. So we have several people on the committee, but that doesn't mean that those people live in every corner of the state. So it's on us as the citizens to be able to advocate for those communities. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy map drawing.